Alright guys, it is the 1st of July and this is where the transfer window really kicks into full gear. All of the players that were out of contract this summer are now officially out of contract, so we're going to see a lot of movement over these next few days and weeks in the transfer market. As always, if you do go to enjoy, make sure to drop a like, and if you're not subscribed already, make sure to go ahead and hit that button if you don't want to miss any more updates coming out over these next few weeks. We've got plenty to go through today, let's jump in. So we'll start out with the Sheffield Wednesday news because once again we're at a critical stage regarding this story. For a second consecutive month now, non-playing staff haven't been played on time, players as well, and we're now at the stage where some players could walk away from their contracts. So basically any of the Sheffield Wednesday players on the books who have not been paid on time in consecutive months now have the option to walk away from their deals. Now Sheffield Wednesday would have a 15-day notice period to satisfy any outstanding payments, but if they're not capable of doing that, we could see players walking away from the club on a free transfer despite still having another year or two left on their contract, and obviously Sheffield Wednesday wouldn't receive any transfer fees for those players in that case. From top to bottom at the club, it is an absolutely dire situation. It doesn't seem as if there is any immediate relief coming to the club either. We'll just have to keep tabs on that over the coming days, but yeah, really do feel for everyone at Sheffield Wednesday in this regard, especially their non-footballing playing staff. In terms of some done deals, we've seen Emil Rees signing for Bristol City on a free transfer upon his contract with Preston North End expiring. Bristol City managed to keep this one under wraps really. Rees had been linked with a few Championship sides at different points. I think Coventry were linked at one point, Sheffield United as well, bit of interest from some clubs in Germany as well, but Bristol City have won the race for his signature, and honestly on a free transfer I don't think you can have too many grumblings over this one. Obviously Naki Wells is moving on, they've replaced him here with a younger alternative. Rees at 27 is theoretically in the prime years of his career. What Preston fans will say about him, he's a very streaky player, Emil Rees. When he's on it, he can go through a patch of 5-6 games where he's hitting the back of the net every single week. But similarly to that, he also has those sort of lull periods where nothing seems to be falling for him, and he just is a bit of a hot and cold striker. If I was to sum him up, he's decent at shooting off either foot, can score an absolute worldie, as North End fans saw on quite a few occasions last season, but equally is capable of missing an absolute sitter as well. In terms of his general play, he doesn't offer a great deal in build up or anything like that, so when he's not scoring, he is someone that you can get a little bit frustrated with. But if I had to put money on it, I'd say that he would get double figures at least for Bristol City in the Championship next season, provided that he does stay fit. And for it to get a player like that on a free transfer, like I say, I don't think you can have too many complaints over that. We've seen James Abankwah joining Watford on loan for the season from Udinese. The defender did spend the second half of last season on loan with the Hornets, where he made 17 starts in the Championship and 2 appearances off the bench. Gives them another option at the back there. But those are some of the done deals which have gone through recently. Now, without any further ado, let's jump into some transfer rumours. And we'll start out with the Louie Barry news, because it looks like Hull have struck a permanent agreement with Aston Villa to sign the forward in a deal worth around about 3.5 million. Now, we've spoken about Hull quite a bit on the channel recently, being linked with a lot of players right now. If you've not seen the last couple of transfer rumour roundup videos, make sure to check them out if you are a Hull City fan. In the case of Barry, I think this one's a really exciting addition. Obviously, Hull fans didn't get to see a great deal of him during the second half of last season while he was on loan, because missed the majority of that second half of the season through injury. But let's not get it twisted. Going back to January, coming off the back of that unbelievable loan spell he had with Stockport, Barry was one of the most in-demand players in the Championship. So the fact that Hull are now getting him on a permanent basis, I think is really exciting going forward. Obviously, goals were a real issue for Hull last season as well, and I think if you get someone like Barry, get him fully fit, he'd be a real asset at this level. So yeah, if I was a Hull fan, I'd be pretty excited about that. They're getting him for a good price as well, around about 3.5 million, although it is worth pointing out that Aston Villa will have a sizable sell-on clause as part of that deal. We've also had confirmation that Kane Hayden has passed his medical at Coventry ahead of a permanent switch there. We discussed this one on last time's video, but I think this one will be a really good capture for Cov. The transfer fee being anywhere from sort of 3.5 million to 4.5 million is what has been quoted. You'd imagine, because Aston Villa are willing to sell him at such a reasonable price, there'd also be a juicy sell-on clause as part of that deal as well. That's just me assuming there. But from a Coventry perspective, I think they're getting a really good player at a really good price as well. Capable of playing on the left or right hand side. He's young, versatile, quick, dynamic, all the sort of attributes that you'd want from a right back, right wing back. Now on last time's video we discussed Southampton defender Taylor Harwood Bellis and how Porto had submitted a bid of around about £19 million. Well, we have had a bit of a development on this story, and it's that Southampton have rejected that initial bid. Now it is believed that Southampton are open to a potential sale, but they believe that Harwood Bellis is worth more than that initial bid. There has also been a bit of Premier League interest in the defender as well, so we'll wait and see if Porto's bid springs any of those clubs into life and they go after him. Speaking of Southampton, they're in advanced talks for Cologne forward Damon Downs. He's currently got 1 year left on his contract in Germany. The Saints have submitted an initial offer worth around about €8 million, so in pounds that's about 6.8 million. Looks like Southampton are confident of getting that deal done. They're pushing for him at the moment. He's coming off the back of a decent season in the German second division where he scored 10 league goals last season. Only 20 years old as well, and a fully fledged international for the United States. Former Liverpool youngster Bobby Clark could be on the move this summer, and there is a fair bit of championship interest in the 20-year-old. He's currently on the books of Red Bull Salzburg, but hasn't established himself as a consistent starter there, so potentially the club would be open to his sale this summer. Among the championship clubs interested, you've got the likes of Southampton, West Brom, Birmingham and Leicester, who have all been linked. You've also got some clubs in the Premier League. Sunderland I've seen linked, Rangers, another one, and a few others from across Europe as well. Now, he likely wouldn't come cheap. Red Bull Salzburg signed the midfielder just a year ago for a fee of around about £10 million, and Liverpool also have a pretty hefty sell-on clause as part of that deal as well, so the Austrian side will be keen to bank as much money as possible, but definitely a possibility that we see him in the Championship next season. Both Stoke and Derby are interested in signing John Swift, who is now officially a free agent upon his contract with West Brom expiring. Didn't have the greatest of seasons for the Baggies last time around, but I still think could do a job in the Championship in the right setup and when utilised in the right role. Now, a few weeks ago, Portsmouth were also in the race to sign him, but it seems like they've since pulled out of that and will be exploring alternative options instead. It has been stated that Swift would be willing to take a pay cut compared to what he was earning at West Brom, so we'll wait and see how hard either Stoke or Derby are willing to push for him. And speaking of Stoke, they're also closing in on the signing of Plymouth defender Maxim Telrov. Now, I think this one would be a really good addition. Obviously, we only briefly really saw him in the Championship last season. Plymouth signed him in the January window for then a club record fee of around about 1.7 million. Only made 11 Championship appearances in the second half of the season, but made quite the impression during those games, didn't he? Definitely good enough for this level. I'd be interested to know what the sort of transfer fee for this deal is, because, you know, only a few months ago, Plymouth were obviously shelling out around 1.7 mil for him, so you'd imagine it would be a similar sort of transfer fee that Stoke are paying here. For the right money though, yeah, I quite like the sound of that deal. Now, on last time's video, we spoke about Middlesbrough midfielder Hayden Hackne and his links to the Premier League, especially the likes of Manchester United and Tottenham, who have been tracking him for quite some time. Well, it's now Crystal Palace who appear to be one of the most prevalently interested clubs, and they're willing to push for his signature. However, he's not the only Middlesbrough player that they're interested in right now, as Crystal Palace are also interested in a deal for Borough defender Rav Vandenberg. Now, it has been suggested that Palace would be open to a double swoop, a double deal for both players worth around about 27 million. Now, whether or not that would be enough for Middlesbrough to cash in on both of them, we'll have to wait and see. You'd imagine for Hackney especially, the club will be looking for quite a sizable fee given his age, pedigree, the fact that he's English as well, that also adds a premium. But in the case of Vandenberg, no surprise that he's attracting some Premier League interest as well. I think there was a bit of interest back in the January window, if I remember rightly. On last time's video, we spoke about Ipswich Town playmaker Amari Hutchinson and his links to the Premier League, especially Everton. Well, West Ham are the latest clubs who are being heavily linked with a move for the creative star. Does seem more than likely that with the amount of interest in Hutchinson right now, it seems unlikely that he'll be playing Championship football next season, as painful as that might be to hear for some Ipswich fans. Bundesliga side Wolfsburg are really looking to raid the Championship at the moment, aren't they? In yesterday's video, we spoke about their interest in Sheffield United's Vinny Souza. Well, now it seems like they could push for a deal for Norwich's Josh Sargent. Now, Sargent has attracted plenty of Premier League interest during this window so far. Links to the likes of Leeds and Burnley have been circulating, but perhaps a move back to the Bundesliga could be on the cards for Sargent. Obviously, really came up through Werder Bremen as a youngster. With the level of interest right now, it does seem unlikely that Norwich will be keeping hold of him. The best case scenario for Norwich is that a bit of a bidding war ensues, but we'll wait and see. The next signing through the door at Wrexham could be Stuart Armstrong. He's available on a free right now upon his contract with Sheffield Wednesday expiring. Wrexham have been in talks with the midfielder and they've been linked for quite some time as well. It's been known for a while that he's a Wrexham target. I think he'd be a nice addition, obviously briefly featured for Wednesday during the second half of last season. Someone who would bring plenty of experience to that Wrexham side. Obviously they've been linked with a few older heads right now, but Stuart Armstrong definitely still got the legs and ability to be playing Championship football. However, one player who seemingly won't be going to Wrexham is Fulham captain Tom Cairney, because according to the latest reports, he's close to penning a new one-year extension with the Premier League club. Obviously, it was one of the first big rumours that we had of this summer that Wrexham were prepared to offer Cairney a massive contract to lure him to the racecourse. He is technically out of contract right now, but has been in discussions with Fulham over a new deal, and like I say, according to reports, seems more than likely that he will be penning that extension, so Wrexham will be looking at alternative targets in that midfield department. Belgian midfielder Brian de Keersmaker appears to be on his way to sign for Oxford United, and Oxford have fended off quite a bit of interest to get this deal over the line as well. He was a target for Blackburn Rovers, but would appear that Oxford were prepared to pay a higher price for the 25-year-old. He spent the last few years playing in the Eredivisie, and by all accounts this looks to be quite an exciting capture from an Oxford perspective. For Blackburn, it'll be back to the drawing board and on with other targets, I'd only have to assume. And not the news that West Brom fans would have wanted to hear, but David Brooks' supposed move to the Hawthorns is now off. The Bournemouth wide man has been heavily linked with a move to the Baggies this summer, but that move will seemingly be no longer going through, and it looks like Brooks could be off elsewhere, potentially in the Championship. We know there's been interest from the likes of Southampton and Birmingham as well as West Brom this summer. Only 24 hours ago, this one was being heavily rumoured that looked to be close to a done deal, but for whatever reason, doesn't look like that will be going through anymore. But there you guys have it. There's your latest roundup of Championship transfer news. Anything that we missed in today's video, make sure to get it in the comments down below and we'll give it a mention next time. Apart from that though guys, thank you very much for tuning in and I'll see you all in the next one.